Sure. And Champagne will be heading to the University of Memphis to get her PhD. And so she did some work on our campus wetland, and I'll talk about that most recent project in a few minutes. And also the reason I did it, this is Dr. Tom Bio. He is a professor on loan at TSU. He actually works for USGS. And the reason I wanted to put that is that throughout, I talk about people who has helped me along the way. And Tom, being a white male, is probably one of my best friends and very good mentor. And so a lot of the things that I do with students, Tom is right on my side. So I wanted to acknowledge Tom. And so this is just a little bit, I'm just gonna talk about who I am, where I'm from, my journey, career, what I'm passionate about, and what I do now, which is kind of very interesting. I am from Zachary, Louisiana. So when people say, where is that? Like, you know, Doug Williams, the football player. Anybody know Doug Williams? First black quarterback to win Super Bowl. He was my neighbor, okay? So from a very little small town just north of Baton Rouge, I went to this little tiny school called Northeast, and it's in Pride. And the area is so small that we go from kindergarten to 6th grade, and then you go from 7th grade to 12th grade. So I only went from elementary to high. There's no in between. Okay. This is my niece. I don't have any kids, but she's like my mini, and I'm so excited that she's been FFA and she wants to be animal science, and she'll be spending the summer with me next month. And so I wanted to make sure that I acknowledge my niece Gloria. In the middle picture, you'll see my mom and all of her siblings. She is the baby of 11. And I think this is important because my mom raised me as a single parent. And she did not go to college because she had to work to take care of me. But this village, and I say this is a village because when I lived before I moved to the country, and I say the country, this is where I lived, I would run across the street to my uncles and aunts, and they would literally take care of me while my mom worked. This is important because once we moved to the country, my grandmother was very instrumental because we would have to wake up super early. My mom would drop us off with my grandma would cook breakfast, get us ready for school. And so that's how my life started, right? I really did have a village. My mom later married, and this is my stepdad, and I think this is important because I call him dad, right? And he was very important in my life. So I wanted to acknowledge that. Growing up, I did not know what I wanted to do, to be totally honest with you. I mean, I was in 4-H, I would go feed the hogs, work in the garden, but I never thought that I would pursue a career in forestry. That's just not what I thought. I did a summer program called ESTA with this called Earth Sciences at the Timbuktu Academy, and it was at Southern University. So I thought maybe I would do biology, chemistry. And then I got a phone call from a man named Rodney Stone, and he's like, your guidance counselor told me you're the valedictorian, and I'm calling you to see if you want to major in urban forestry. And I'm like, urban forestry, what is that, right? And he said, no, come on, there's great opportunity. I'll pay your, you'll get a full scholarship. So I'm thinking, okay, money, scholarship, we'll see how this goes, right? So I accepted a scholarship and I went to Southern University. Rodney Stone became my mentor. And so I pursued a degree in urban forestry. My first summer after my freshman year, he convinced me somehow, some way to go to Oregon. And I say this to say is that was my first time on a plane, right? My freshman year, finishing the freshman year. And I left New Orleans, we hit some birds. We had engine failure, had to go back to New Orleans, my flight was delayed. And then I made it to Boise very late that night. And I was picked up by this woman named Julie Hallisey, who would become my supervisor. And so we stayed in Boise that night. The next day, Julie said, "Do you need anything from the store?" I said, "No, I'm fine." She's like, "No, do you need anything from the store? Because this is the closest Walmart." I'm like, what have I gotten myself into, right? And so we head to John Day, Oregon, which is the Magnolia National Forest. I would go to work in John Day, Burns, Grady City, in that area. Beautiful area of the country, but it was unique whereas I was the only Black person in the county. and everyone knew me as the Black gal that worked with 4 stars. I'll be honest with you. If you know anything about the area, also have some very interesting. But Judy being my supervisor was amazing, and we got into a lot of trouble, good trouble, if you could say. I didn't have a car, and so that first week of work was very interesting because it was the hills, and I had a bicycle. I was pushing the bike up the hill because I couldn't make it up the hill. But it was then that Judy, I was a hydrologist trainee, so pursuing a degree in urban forestry. But this is when I started looking at water, right? So working under Judy, I joined the bear team with her. I went on my first fire without my red card. We got in so much trouble when I got back. But that is when Judy took me on helicopter rides with her. We were looking at post fire, looking at, just mapping the fires, looking at soils, looking at culverts, and looking at potential hazards that would come from the fire. So my first fire, what was the name of that? It was called Ball Feeder. That was the name of the fire. So came back. Judy and I got in a lot of trouble because I wasn't trained to do a fire, but I went on a fire. But I did get my red card eventually. So I did a couple more fires that summer. We also did some work on some bats. Again, I didn't have my shots. For doing that as well. So I just tell you a little bit about my experience because I wanted to just highlight importance of mentors, and Judy and I are still very close, even though this occurred more than almost 25 years ago. We actually had lunch a couple of months ago. She's on her way to Kentucky. She still lives in the Pacific Northwest now. So while in Southern my senior year, I got a chance to attend a conference, and it's called the Southwest Black Student Leadership Conference. That Rodney Stone was like, you need to go. I'm like, okay, I'll go. It was at this conference I did a tour of the Spatial Sciences Lab at Texas A&M, and I met Dr. Shraney, or we call him Shraney. And so I just had a great time looking at the research he's done. He's implemented a tool called SWOT. And so after that trip, Srini emailed me and he was like, have you thought about graduate school? And I was like, well, Judy and I had talked about it, but I don't know if I mentioned I was the first in my family to become first-gen graduate. So I never thought about master's degree or PhD. And I was like, well, Judy and I talked about it, but I don't know. He was like, well, I have this opportunity. If you want to come work in my lab, you can teach my classes, so you'll be a TA. It's like, okay. Yes, I'll go. If you know anything about Texas A&M, it's a bit different. So I had to adjust to that culture, right? I'm going from a very small HBCU to a very large white 1862 land-grant institution. But it was there that Dr. Srini, Jacqueline Athenhead Peterson, who became my co-chair, they all took me under their wing. I joined the Black Grad Students Association. And so actually A&M and College Station became like a family. It was a lot of us from Louisiana. We created a group called Crawfish Connection. We would have, family dinners on Sundays. And so this is when I really started learning more about the environment. I TA'd a course called Environmental Sustainability. And so I was like, okay, I'm doing the GIS and environmental science stuff. But it was also at A&M that I really started thinking about what are my next steps. And so I was able to do a facilitating leadership program and get a certification through the Department of Ag Ed. So that kind of honed in on maybe I want to do this teaching thing. I don't know, but so I just want to highlight that. So I was supposed to work for the Forest Service after I got my doctorate. That did not happen. And so what instead happened was I went to Afghanistan. And I worked as a log cap civilian contractor with DynCorp. And so I eventually became the regional environmental manager for South and Southwest Afghanistan. This was in 2011. So if you know about that time, you knew it was going on. I will say Afghanistan changed my life. Just remember, just a few years before that, I had the first time on the plane. My first time out of the country was to go to Afghanistan. Okay, I literally got a passport to go to Afghanistan. And as you can see, this is me flying across the country. That was my first, I don't know if you really can see it, my first huge sandstorm that I experienced, and we're just out taking pictures. Well, let's take pictures, but I really got a chance to work with the local Afghanis. My job and responsibilities working with the troops, making sure that hazardous waste, hazmat, things that we do, that we try to leave the country as it was before we arrived. So that was my job. I traveled from fob to fob, with the military. So this is how I traveled. And I went really from base to base. I'm just doing things, working with the soldiers, local Afghanis. And it was then that I fell in love with travel, because when you're a civilian contractor across the pond, you can only come to the US 70 days or you will have to pay taxes. And so I decided to take my R&R on that side of the pond. So I did a solo 2-week trip to Indonesia, went back and forth to Bali, and that kind of sparked my international travel. Since then, I've been to India, Jordan, and some other places, and so most recently Senegal. And so I say to say that doing this is kind of what sparked my interest in traveling, especially traveling solo. What am I doing now? I've been at TWIG almost 12 years. And so I started as an assistant professor in urban forestry. And I wanted to put this picture here because one of the first things that I did at TSU was to become a tree canvas, and we're not one now, because nobody picked it up and I kind of dropped the ball. But that was one of my first things, to really look at TSU and see how we can make it better. I want to thank, I thought she was gonna come, Jennifer, with Metro. She really kind of took me under her wings when I got here, and told me all about the Tennessee Urban Forestry Council and really introduced me to the urban forestry world in Tennessee. And I think Jennifer really made my job here very easy. So started as an extension specialist. What can we do to educate the public about urban forestry, especially North Nashville and those areas? And so that's what I did initially. It was then I kind of fell in love with working with the students. I saw students that looked like me, were first gen. Our college is primarily female. And so as you can see, one of the first things we did was we created what's called Tiger Women in Ag. And so we now have probably 65 students, either students that are female or identify as female or in that organization. And so that was pretty exciting for me. I've had the opportunity to really network and really find opportunities for our students. And I wanted to highlight this picture. These were my first 3 students at TSU. Marissa is now a pediatrician in Florida. Courtney is now the superintendent over the food from cardio plant here in Nashville. And Jerisha just got her PhD. And so for me, this is what makes my job exciting. And I'll get into what I do now. It's not the last fun part. But working with the students, here is my first cohort of my Environmental Justice Academy. And so I was able to create an academy where students would go through a week-long program. They had to do a capstone, they received a stipend in their, go back to their community, implement. And then we went to the Forest Service headquarters in DC. And working with our local stakeholders, this is just a picture of something I did with the Tennessee Farm Bureau. We do a local discussion meet. What is that? Students get a topic about something relevant and they have to do a discussion. It's not a debate, but it's something that you would do at a board meeting on a topic, and it's a topic related to the ag industry. So things like that. I became the interim associate dean in 2018. As you know, COVID started that next spring. So here I am right into my new role as associate dean of academics and trying to make this large transition to the virtual online world. So that was pretty interesting. I was promoted to permanent associate dean in 21. My day-to-day job is pretty interesting. I do academic leadership. So since I've been associate dean, we've created new master's programs, and most recently we have completely restructured the college. And so that's under my portfolio. So we went from 2 academic units to now 5. And so I went from having 2 people directly reporting me, department chairs, to now 5, and a whole slew of other people. So that's been really interesting, but we restructured to make things better for the students. I do a lot of faculty development support. Most recently, we had this 2-day training on how to be better mentors, right? Everyone said, I got a mentor, but how do you mentor? What is the importance of mentoring? What is the foundations of mentoring? So we did that. Policy development, I do promotion and tenure. Anything from like greenhouse access, I think we're having some issues now, and we're like, okay, we have to come with a policy on how we allow visitors to our campus farm, right? So it's just different things like that, policy that I work on. Student success is a big passion of mine. And the reason I say that is because we have students, our students are coming from St. Louis, Indianapolis, Memphis, here in Nashville, Atlanta, and we're bringing them into agriculture. And traditionally, kids nowadays, especially Black kids, they think ag is farming. They don't think about its sustainability. They don't think that you can go out and work in the wetland, or you can do GIS and remote sensing. It's the biotech and fashion merchandising and product development. And so how do we, one, recruit those students, and then how do we retain them and get them out for years? Because any longer is money, and we don't want them spending any extra money. So I get the privilege of really exciting planning things that they can do to make them better. Networking with industry. I was just telling Deli this weekend, I went to the first annual Outside Festival in Denver from Outside Magazine. And so seeing now, how can we start working with the outside industry? And so working with North Face, Columbia, and those types of companies. And so I'm excited. We will be hosting our first HBCU outside kind of tour on campus. And so looking forward to doing that. Strategic planning is really interesting, especially when you work at a university, because you have your faculty, right? That is your stakeholder. Your students are your stakeholder. Your alumni are your stakeholders. And then you have industry, local commodity groups, your state officials. And so right now we are in the process of doing a new strategic plan for the college. And so that will be under my portfolio. And so I have my committee, we'll be doing several listening sessions across the state, and also with our students and on campus collaborators as well. And lastly, the board member. I have been really strategic about which boards I wanted to be a member of. And so I'm on the Inclusion Council, which I really think is important for this industry. Most recently, I joined the Land Between the Lakes Advisory Board, and that itself has been very beneficial because, believe it or not, TSU did not have a relationship with Land Between the Lakes. And since then, I was able to take a group of students camping, we went fishing. We are getting ready to look at some LiDAR data to see how we can collaborate on research. But it's really amazing the stuff that Jim is doing at Land Between the Lakes. And so I really enjoy that. And most recently, I'm doing the Tree Fund board. And so I didn't know anything about the Tree Fund, but they support research. And so being able to join that board and help them do fundraising development, it's been pretty exciting. And somehow they convinced me to train for their tour the trees. So between now and August 31st, I have to drive 425 miles. So we'll see how that works. And so there's a little bit about what I'm passionate about. As you can probably tell, it's just really enhancing students' access to education, finding ways to support these future leaders so that they don't have to worry about the burden and cost of education. So being able to collaborate with like Bayer and Kroger to get some funding, write some grants to get some scholarship funding. Right now, between all of our scholarships, I'm proud to say that we probably have now close to 70 students on partial full scholarship just in our college alone. And so for that to be able to help those kids not have to take out loans and stuff. I will say that I hold them to pretty high standards. They must maintain a 3.2. So, and that's semester basis. So if you mess up one semester, you're getting a letter from me. They have to attend so many professional development, they have to do service. And so I'm not just giving you money, you have to work for it. Research and innovation. It's one thing that I'm really excited about. Most recently, we just received some IRA funding from the Forest Service. I don't know if you know, but TSU has a campus wetland. And so we're gonna work with the Cumberland River Compact, Metro Stormwater, and we're going to, we got 4.6 million to restore our campus wetland for teaching and learning. So I will be in actually probably the next couple of weeks, hiring 3 positions for that grant, which I think will be excited: a project manager, STEM educator, and a fiscal analyst. And the goal is to make that a teaching, outdoor teaching classroom, not just for TSU, but for Metro and all of the local schools. Trying to now secure some funding to put more wall, because the grant doesn't allow for construction. So that's my next goal, but we're looking forward to starting that next month. We have our site visit with Res, and we will work with them to help with the restoration. But we're excited about that. And so just access, I think about when I talk to parents, I think, I think sometimes there's a negative connotation with working without that and just the farming, and how do we change that perception? And so, next month, we will have 40 high school kids living in the dorms for 4 weeks. That's always a fun time, but the end result is having them do their final presentation of the research they do during the summer, and just to see how they like, oh, I didn't know I could do this. And then their parents see it and grandparents see it. And so that's just what's bringing me joy. And the last picture, to McDonald's first. I just have to thank people, right? My family, my mentors, and I have this picture. You probably can't see it, but these were my undergraduate professors, and I was recently awarded a mentor award, and just so happened they were at the meeting, and so to be able to get a mentor award and then have my 2 mentors with me. And I must say, these is Dr. Chi, Dr. Bean, you saw Tom Lyle, you probably heard the name Srini, my dean is Reddy, and I keep saying all these names that my mentors are diverse, right? They're white men, Indian, Chinese, and so Judy's a white woman, Rachel Weiss is a white woman. So I say that I have benefited from people who have invested in me, regardless of their race, gender, religion. It's something that I'm very thankful for. Most recently, I have an executive coach through this leadership program I'm in. I actually just met with Claudia yesterday, and we talked about imposter syndrome and how can I work on that, because that is some things that I know that's an issue with me, right? I'm not a public speaker. I hate speaking in front of groups. It takes a lot. I'm an introvert. So when I go to conferences, I need a couple of days to be like, okay. And so those are things that I recognize that are issues that I have, but I'm thankful that I have people to help me work on that. I'm not gonna be perfect, and I understand that. But like yesterday, I'm like, we're talking, and Claudia's like, okay, well, she gives me an assignment. I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking she's gonna tell me report back. She's like, no, do it now. Like, okay, Claudia. Let's do it now. And then mostly my coworkers, I like to think that TSU is one big family in the college bag. We're very close. You can drive by on some Thursdays and you'll see the faculty students out playing soccer or football, as they would call it. And we've grown a lot. We probably have hired probably more than 20 new professors in the last year, and we're still learning. So now I probably have over 80 professors that try to report to me indirectly, and we're growing as students. So it's exciting. It's a lot of work. I'm not gonna say it's not stressful, because it is, but I think the rewards are greater than the stress. So I think that's it. Maybe. I think that's Tom took me a cake. That was my first time. And I tell you, this picture is really interesting because they had me going in face first. And I was like, can't do this. Yeah, so I had to come back out and flip myself around, and then I went down feet first, because something about crawling where I couldn't see, it was mentally easier for me to go feet first. But yeah, thanks to Tom.
Does anyone have any questions for Diego? Yeah, the wetlands area that you have, is that how I'm regulated?
No, it's actually right on,
Okay.
what road is that? Like, right on German Mirror, like, right on the main campus. It's right on.
That's for the boardwalk?
Yeah,
Okay.
so we're gonna do boardwalk, and so only thing is the grant, the USDA restricted it to just restoration, so I can't use it for any construction costs. And so, I think I have a potential donor, so working with them hopefully next week, that we can get, solidify that and build a boardwalk. And my goal is to build like a pavilion, so when kids come on the field trip, they can sit outside and. Yeah, but we got plenty to do the internal signage and all that stuff, so if you know anybody, tell them to apply for the project manager position.
Are you still working on the board or?
So indirectly, we do have 4-H. We have TSU is in 60 of the 95 counties. And so they need something for me to do a speak or work with them, I do that. FFA, I've done the CDs for like forestry and stuff like that, so yeah, I do indirectly kind of do it. We have, I just reported that, we have right now at 450. It's small, we have the capacity to double that and have way more students. And so, I've given my recruitment team, we got to get to work. So we've gotten money for scholarships and we are increasing our programs and we're really focusing on student learning outcomes. And, closing the loop, and so I think we're like this hidden gem, and then we have to do a better job of showing what we have at TSU. We have over 100 graduate students, so the graduate program is doing really well. Masters in environmental science, masters in food and animal, masters in ag business and leadership, which is online, and then we have our PhD program that we just started 2 years ago. So we just have to do a better job of really promoting the programs that we have.